Wonderful. So folks, just while we have a minute, I'd love to tell you a little bit. So this cooking class, I believe this is the last one we get to do with this group. Is that right, Lynette?
Yes, that's what I'm aware of.
But of course, we're going to have more options. We are going to start some in-person cooking classes and then this summer, and they're going to be community meals where we get together on the last Saturday of the month, cook a big meal with me. We'll probably be making some side dishes and we'll pick up some other ones and have a lovely farm picnic all together. And that's going to be happening the last Saturday of the month from June through September. And it's from 12 to 2. You can hang out in the garden and walk around after. It's a nice time. And if you need transportation, we can arrange to get an FRTA bus for you. So you can send us an email if you're interested in hearing about that. And we'll make sure that we get some info out to you on email about all the fun events and workshops that we're going to be having at the farm this summer. I can't believe it's summer already, but tomorrow is June, folks. Whew.
Oh. I know.
Doesn't feel real. And we're also going to be piloting a new cooking class in July. And this one is also going to be online, and it will probably, we're not exactly sure the theme of the class or how it's going to work out yet. We're waiting to get some feedback about that, but we're going to have other options to get together and cook. And we'd love to have you join those things, whether it's in person or online.
Oh, I love these online classes. I love them. Everything's been so good so far.
That's wonderful feedback to hear. Thank you. Okay, I have a feeling that because of this nice weather, we might not get too many people in the class. So let's go ahead and get started. I just washed my eggplant and took the sticker off, and it's actually not super waxy. So I'm going to leave the skin on for this dish, but some people don't like eggplant skin. It is a little bit more leathery. It does soften when it's cooked. Feel free to peel it with just a regular vegetable peeler. But I'm sure by now you know that I love using the skins because they have the most fiber and a lot of the nutrients in them. So we're gonna use them for this, but feel free to peel. Give your eggplant a little wash to get anything off of it, and we can start cutting.
Ooh la la, ooh la la, ooh la la.
And the eggplant is the main part of this dish, the main flavor. And last week, if you were here, I told you we'd have some tips on eggplant, and pretty much what we're doing with it right now is the number one tip. So we're going to cube our eggplant up, and then we're going to set it in layers and salt it. And so this is making the eggplant sweat, is what they call it in kitchens. And we want to get some of the excess moisture out of that eggplant, and it's really going to get softer a lot quicker. We are going to rinse off that extra salt, so don't feel bad if you went pretty liberal and spread that salt on it. We're going to rinse it off after. So let's start doing cubes. I'd say like a 1-inch cube is fine. You can do them a little bigger or a little bit smaller. I start with cutting the edge off. Even if the peel goes down a little farther, you really only have to cut off a little bit of it, and you can peel the stem up. And what I like to do is cut it into little chunks first, just to make my life a little bit easier when I'm cutting it up. And then again, I'm going to remove this bottom part, which can be a little bit woodier or thicker. This is for compost. And so we're looking to make about 1-inch cubes. Doesn't have to be perfect. They're going to get sauteed down pretty mushy. So once I made my little medallion, I cut it in half and in half. And then you can cut your pieces how you'd like to get them down to about 1 inch.
I've got mine all prepped already. It's been rinsed and added.
That's amazing. Good for you. Well, you get to watch and hang for a little bit while we all catch up.
My onion and my garlic are chopped too.
Oh my goodness. Look at you go. I wish we could borrow you in some of our kitchens. I just got home from work, so I didn't
Yeah.
have time to prep.
I mean, home all day pretty much, so.
Ah.
I
Well,
did, I went out for breakfast with an old friend today that I hadn't seen for 40 years, so that was fun.
that's wonderful. Where 40 years is a long time to not see a friend. That's like
Oh, no.
amazing. Now, if everyone is ahead of me, I'm happy to speed up my chopping a little bit without cutting myself. I think I can do that. But is anyone still on eggplant chopping? Just wave, flail, if I can see. Okay, we'll speed it up a little.
Hey, Brooke,
Yeah.
sometimes I've read that you don't have to salt eggplant anymore. Like in the last few years, people have said like, you don't have to salt it, but you find it works better.
I personally do. That's just like what I've learned in Thai kitchens. And for me, like Thai food has the softest, most delicious eggplant. And
That's
that's
true.
what they do. So I'm like, I'm going to go for it. But there's another thing. They also soak eggplant in, like, you could soak it in melted butter, which would be a little extreme. You could soak it in coconut milk. That's another thing too, to help it break down ahead of time and just get like extremely creamy. You could also soak it in regular milk or buttermilk.
Well, I made sure I rinsed it really well because I don't do a lot of salt. I never salt anything when I'm cooking.
Yeah.
I always let people salt and pepper their own.
That's a good way to go. And you know, we will be rinsing all this salt off, so don't worry. So
I rinsed it really well. That's why I'm still patting it dry.
good. So what I'm doing right now is I am layering. So I'm only going to put a little bit and I'm going to sprinkle my salt, and then I'm going to put my second layer and sprinkle my salt. And I do it pretty heavily. Another, if you're like ever, I do recommend salt. I mean, I want to read up on why you don't need to salt anymore, but when I worked in a restaurant, we used to make a fried eggplant po' boy sandwich that like was incredible. And we would always salt the eggplant first and then dip it in batter. And it actually helped the batter stick to the eggplant quite a bit. So I don't know, we should look into it. I wish I had all the answers. And I'm just gonna let that soak for a while in my sink. And in the meantime, we're going to cut up our onion and garlic, which I know Patty has already done, but I'm gonna catch up.
Because I just figured there's not really much time in it. It's like,
I know.
that's why I try to do a lot of the prep ahead of time. I printed out the recipe for myself today.
It's so true. An hour flies by so fast. And then I think about Rachel Ray does those 30-minute meals on TV. And I'm like, how does she, 30 minutes is not a lot of time. She slams it.
Well, they edit a lot of it. They shoot and then they edit it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And everything is prepped.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think we're doing pretty good for our time consideration. It is tough though, when we pick recipes, we have to think about that too. It might be nice, like if we were to do this again, to have a little bit longer, optional for people to stay or not.
I can't wait to make the falafels again. Those were so good.
You liked them? I'm so glad to hear that.
God, those were wonderful.
Wow. Yay. I'm glad.
We love them too. They're really great.
Yay.
I'm going to do it right in the food processor next time, though. I'm not going to try mashing it by hand.
Yeah, it's a lot. It'll make you sore. My arms are already very sore today because I was chopping or splitting logs all day yesterday for the winter, and I'm like, oh geez, I can't imagine if we had to do the falafel processing again today. That was hard. But I feel like it's also kind of cool because that's how people use, everything was by hand that people did in the kitchen. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that we have food processors, but sometimes it's fun to do it the hard way.
I can't wait to try these crushed whole tomatoes that you gave me. Those look so good. It's like,
I know.
I mean, I
Yep.
can make a meal just on like stewed tomatoes or something. Just
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
I,
there's no,
I
just so you know,
tomatoes my name.
there's no salt in these, FYI, the canned tomatoes. Okay, so I'm gonna get out I really like garlic, so I might do 5 cloves of
I
garlic
did.
if I can get them open.
It smells so good in here just from the chopped garlic.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, peeling my garlic. By the way, I always have like little plates out, which makes more dishes, but I like to have somewhere to put my chop things off the cutting board. It's just my partner always gets annoyed by it because I make more dishes, but at least it's not all over the floor, which is what it should
put
be.
garlic in the little one and my onion in a little one.
Yeah,
So,
totally. That's a good way to go.
and I'm
How
glad
did
I bought.
everyone's basil hold up? Did anyone have issues with their basil not holding up?
No, I put the bag in the fridge. Didn't even open it up. It still looks good.
Great. So happy to hear that. Sometimes what I do with mint and basil, I want to show you really quick, even though it's not the recipe. I stick it back in water and it continues to grow. And sometimes you can even replant it with mint and basil. Something to try. You just have to make sure you change out the water every once in a while. But I've had that mint for like 3 or 4 weeks now that I pulled out of the garden.
And you keep it not in the fridge, you keep it out of the fridge.
I keep it out of the fridge, but you could also store it in the fridge. I just love it because if it's out of the fridge, I see it all the time and I add it to my water and it makes me drink more water, which is good. Yeah. I don't know if anyone in this group gets the CSA from Just Fruits, but they had fresh onion in it, which I'm excited to be able to use too. And you can also re-sprout those.
Yeah, I'm hooked on the sweet onions. That's all I eat now is the sweet onions.
They're really good. Very good.
It's like I almost don't like yellow onions anymore.
I like them all. Alliums, which is like the group of onions, garlic, leeks, ramps, chives. They're like my favorite thing in the world. If I couldn't eat them, I don't know what I would do.
I gotta try leeks. I've never tried leeks. I'm gonna have to try them.
Yeah, they're really they're sweet. They're very good like in cream sauces and sauteed, especially if you eat bacon. They're really good with bacon or any kind of like pork. They're good at, you can make a cream of leek soup with potato.
No, I don't eat potatoes.
You don't eat potatoes or you do?
I don't. I haven't eaten potatoes in a couple of years.
Well, we won't make that then, but you can make it with other things too. Not just
Good, like sauteed up. I love doing like stir fry in the summer with zucchini and summer squash and snow peas, celery. I think it would be good in that.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. So basically what we're doing right now, we're going out of order because we're buying ourselves time since we only have an hour together to get those eggplant ready to rinse. So once you finish up with your chopping, you can put it to the side and clear off your workstation. We're just going to get our spices ready to go that are going to go into the dish. So we included, you should have gotten oregano and what you're gonna want, those are definitely the most important, of course, with salt and pepper, but red pepper and oregano. And then because this has sort of a Mediterranean flair to it, I thought what also would pair nicely, I got out some paprika because I like paprika. I got out some caraway seeds as well, which I would stew it probably for like 10 more minutes if you were going to use caraway because the seeds take a long time to break down. And then I got fresh basil. You can use dried basil. You can use a little onion powder, a little garlic powder, if you want it to be a little bit more flavorful. But because these are like local farm tomatoes, the tomatoes themselves have a lot of flavor and they're really good. So no need to do that. So my basil, because I left it sitting out, isn't as pretty as yours might be, but I just want to point out that even though that there's some like brown on this basil leaf, I can still eat this. I use my nose as the best tell of what's good and what's not. And the oxidizing of the leaf is normal. It's when it gets slimy is when you wouldn't want to use it, or if it smells funky. And so I am going to just throw in a tiny bit of my caraway because I want to put that in there. And a dash of my paprika. And then depending on how much heat you like, you can do 1/4 to 3/4 tablespoon or teaspoon, not tablespoon, of red pepper. I like it spicy, so.
Now, are you doing this in a little dish separately, or are you putting it right in the pan?
I'm putting this right in the pan. Everything, it's a 1-pan dish.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm doing the spices separately.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand. And it looks like, Lynette, we got a question from Marcy and Mira. Do you want to respond to that? I can't quite read it. That's too small on my screen. Okay.
Yeah. We did get the recipe and chopped our eggplant and onions, but are not sure what else we should be chopping. Basil.
Right now, I pulled out my basil, so I'm gonna chop some of that fresh basil, but right now we're just prepping our spice. The only thing you missed, I think, would be to chop up your garlic. You probably want 4 cloves of garlic. Sound good? Okay, and then I'm adding a teaspoon of oregano. So I've got all my spices in there. You can swish it around or swirl it. And then I am going to leave some of my basil out of this spice mix because I want to put it on top as a garnish and fresh, but I'm going to cut up most of it. When you see this, it means that the basil has gone to this is starting to be a flower. They are edible, but they're a lot stronger. It has a lot more like thymol, or the chemical that makes, it's a natural chemical, but that makes that potent basil flavor. So you can choose to use it or not. It doesn't bother me, but I'm going to chop these kind of thin. This helps release some of the flavor and scent. And I'm going to add that to my spice. So I'm just going to leave, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 pieces out. Also, the stems you can eat. So if you chop them fine enough, they're easy to chew and swallow. So please feel free to do it. Something that I always do when I have a big basil harvest is I take the stems after I've made pesto or something, and I infuse vinegar with them. So I'll pour some apple cider vinegar or white vinegar, put the stems inside the vinegar for like a week, and then you have delicious basil vinegar that is great for salads, or anything you want to use it for, marinades.
Do you use red cider vinegar, apple cider vinegar?
That's my go-to. It's just what I like the most.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, apple cider is just probably better for our health, you know, because it's live. If you're not going to heat it.
Good. Yeah, I think I'll try it.
Lots of microorganisms, good for our digestion. So that is definitely my go-to. I think this year we're gonna try to make our own vinegar with some of our apples from our apple tree. I'm very excited to try that out. Okay, so got my basil saved for later. Got my spice mix ready. And at this point, it's 5:21. I'm going to start to rinse my eggplant. So I'm going to be right over here. And I'm going to rinse all that salt off, kind of use my hands to get it off too. Cold water is best. And then just like Patty was doing, I have a paper towel laid out on a plate and I'm gonna put the eggplant on it and then sort of pat it dry. I forgot to have everyone look at the eggplant when you first take it out and you can see beads of sweat on it. It's really cool before you rinse it.
Yeah.
Just like us today, this 90-degree weather in Franklin County. I just moved to get away from hot and it followed me. And it doesn't have to be like perfectly dry. I worry more about making sure things are dry when we're going to be like frying it to make it crispy. And we're not doing that here. We're cooking it in the pan, not frying it. But that's a good hint. Like, I don't know if y'all have ever made French fries before, but the best thing to do is get all the water and starch out of the French fry for as long as possible. And then make sure they're very dry when you put them into the deep fryer, whatever you use, oil. Getting things dry is the best for making them crispy. Just like with steak, if you cook that, you want to really dry outside of the steak so it gets a nice char on it. Okay, so my eggplant look pretty dry to me. So now we're going to start actually cooking. Well, this is all cooking, but everyone got some olive oil, 1 tablespoon to start. I'm using a saucepan, so it's got high sides. And normally I try to use a flat pan for everything, but this is good because we're going to have quite a bit of liquid coming from the eggplant and coming from the tomato. And I'm going to use about half of my eggplant to start. Close it up. Put it on medium heat.
Hey, Brooke?
Yeah.
Is 20 minutes a good rule of thumb for salting eggplants when we're not on the clock? Or is there an ideal timeline to do it?
15 minutes is just fine. That's what we used to do in a kitchen I worked at. Any amount is good. I feel like I've never approached cooking from a science, but from like a wing it background. And, you know, I think it's helpful even if you do it for 5 minutes.
Great.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's the only way to go.
Yes. Baking, on the other hand, is definitely a science. And when I try to just wing it, I'm always making some really gross gobbledygook baked goods. So I've been trying to train myself to actually use the recipe and take measurements with baking, because
Baking, you have to, yeah.
a lot can go wrong.
Science.
Okay, cool. So we're heating our olive oil, half our eggplants in the pot. We're gonna cook it for like 10 minutes until it's golden. I might turn up the heat a little bit in sake of time so we can finish together, and I'm gonna cook it a little bit hotter. And try to get, you want it to be soft to the touch and golden brown. It, you know, the color is going to change as it starts to cook, and we'll show you that when it comes out. Yeah. And then once this round is done, we're gonna, if you need to add more oil, you can add more oil, finish the second round of eggplant. Then we will do our onion, followed by the garlic and the spices. So while the oil is already warm, you get those spices in it and it starts to smell really good. And then we'll kind of put it all back in the same pan together, put the tomato sauce on, and we're gonna let it simmer for 15 or more minutes, however long you like. And for those of you who weren't here when we first started, I had been talking about how hot it is, and that this dip is actually, or this stew can actually be served cold. You can eat this stew by itself cold. You can use it as a dip, and it would be really refreshing. So if you don't want to eat this hot food tonight, you can put it in the fridge once it cools, and then have it as a nice refreshing dip, because that would be good too. We had suggested having it over rice or with baguette. I think everyone got a baguette with their delivery. That would be super yummy. You could toast your bread first. So maybe you want to do that. You can cut it in half, put a little olive oil, maybe even some garlic, and make garlic bread if you want in the oven. I'm probably going to have mine with rice today, I think. So my pan's heating up. I'm just uncovering it to stir.
Can you give us a close-up? Okay, cool. And why a lid?
Just to keep it from burning. You can take your lid off if you want, but you can cook it faster. And because you have the lid on it, so it preserves a little bit of moisture. If you put it on an open flame, you're going to need a little more olive oil, which you could do too. We could do that for the next batch if you want to see that.
Thanks.
I'm just checking it, making sure to stir it regularly so nothing gets stuck to the bottom or burns.
Should we add those dry spices to this or wait?
You're gonna wait on the dry spices.
Okay. Okay.
It wouldn't be horrible to do it now by any means.
Yeah. Right.
I think we'll just wait until we do
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Onion.
I don't know. Well, listen.
And the onion and the garlic, is that supposed to be in there yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Nope. So
All
we're
right.
just doing the eggplant 2 rounds, just so they're not all on top of each other and they get evenly browned. And then we'll do the onion,
Okay.
and then
Good.
we add the garlic. So
All
it's
right.
trying to get a little browner. Couple more minutes.
Oh,
If it's not perfect, it's okay, because you can just, if it's not like perfectly cooked, you can stew it a little bit longer, add some time to the 15. That's not a big deal. I'm also just going to get another plate ready that I can use to put the finished eggplant on. And I like to use paper towel to get any excess oil
Okay.
that I don't need.
Yes, that.
One other thing I wanted to add to mine, I have some garlic chives, and since you guys know that I love everything in the onion family, I'm going to add that to my spices. I like to play around with different flavors quite a bit. Just to keep giving you visuals. It's really starting to get a lot gooier, softer looking. I see the skin is wrinkling. I know that it's getting cooked. Cool. And I'm probably gonna do mine just under 10 minutes because I would love to get to the point where all together we can put our stuff on the stove. We won't be able to taste it together, but so I'm gonna leave it on for another minute or so, and then I'll switch out the eggplant, but add some more oil to the pot too. I really do. If you ever cook with eggplant again, I try out soaking it in milk or in like milk and a little bit of butter or in coconut milk, and it gets so rich and creamy. It's just like one of my favorite tastes in the world. It made me love eggplant having it that way. Okay. So if I had a little more time, I would probably leave them on a little longer, but I'm going to switch it out. There is golden brown on them. They're soft. I can press down on them with my wooden spoon.
Okay. That's good.
I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil and quickly put in my other eggplant. And I don't need to measure. Get that covered up, stir it around a couple times to make sure the olive oil evenly coats. Right. This now is a good time to clean up after myself a little bit.
Okay. I keep grabbing pieces of the eggplant and munching.
Whoops.
Good.
Okay. Can't forget to stir. If you are a step ahead of me, which you may be, then you can add even more olive oil. I would say probably another teaspoon to make sure it's evenly coated, and you can start with the onions, not the garlic yet. Garlic burns so fast, so we would do the onion first. And when we do the onion, something you can do now or when it's in the pan is I put a pinch of salt on the onion. That helps it release water faster, which is exactly what we did with our eggplant.
I rinsed my eggplant really well and I can still taste the salt.
Really? You're not a big fan of salt, huh?
No, but it's good. Like I say, I keep grabbing little chunks and eating it. I guess I'm hungry.
I'm glad you like it.
I used to make eggplant parmesan all the time for my friends, and I loved eating it. And I had
The Parmesan is good. Very good.
Yeah, every once in a while, if we get grinders, I'll get an eggplant grinder. But I don't get it with the tomato sauce. I'll get it with lettuce, tomato, and onions, and mayonnaise.
Oh, that sounds good. Grinders mean sandwiches, I take it.
Yeah. Oh,
It's like what we call
Subway.
potable base.
Like a sub.
always, yeah.
Gotcha. I love this meal because I only have to use one pan. When my partner and I make pasta, I'm gluten-free and he's not. So we make a bowl of pasta for me, a bowl of pasta for him, and then 2 different bowls for our sauces. And then we cook whatever is going to go on top of the pasta. And it's just a nightmare of dishes. So I love that this one is just a pot.
Okay.
I like how eggplant releases sort of a sweet smell in the air when you're cooking it. Has some sugars for sure, almost like marshmallowy. Okay, I'm gonna give these like 2 or 3 more minutes and then we'll switch to the onion. Everyone,
Are we?
okay? Oh, go
I have a
ahead.
question. Are we adding the same? Are we adding the onions into the with the plant?
We're gonna take the eggplant out, use the same pan, cook the onion, then add garlic.
Okay.
And then we'll pretty much once we get the onion and the garlic cooked and the spices are in there, we'll add everything back to the pan, including our can of crushed tomatoes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, mine is very soft and golden brown now. I can break it apart, some of the smaller pieces with my spoon. I'm gonna set that aside. And I'm going to add another tablespoon of olive oil, followed by my onions, not my garlic, that have a pinch of salt on them. Get those stirred up. So I did not cover the onions. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. You can just keep stirring them. They don't burn as much as eggplant does.
Oh, it's so good in here.
I know, I'm getting extremely hungry. My mouth is watering a lot. Yeah, and as I mentioned, now might be a good time if you want to make a little garlic bread or just toast your bread too. You can do that. Well, if you're just toasting it, I would wait another 15 minutes or so. But nice, easy garlic bread. You can melt some butter. You could melt a piece of garlic in the butter on a pot while you do it, so it's really garlicky, or you can cut some garlic up or mash it and mix it on your bread. I think that would be really tasty. So when stewing onions, the trick is usually, you probably see it in recipes all the time, that it says until they are translucent. So when it's being used in a stew, they're usually pretty well done once they're not quite white. They're a little bit off white or eggy white like a yolk, and you can't see through them, but they could show a tone or color behind them.
Yeah,
That's what I'm looking for.
I was ready for my garlic.
I started these, 2-3 minutes ago. They go for 5. Then we add the garlic and the spices. I've got that ready to go. And really quickly, like just 30 seconds, 40 seconds after you add that garlic, because it burns quickly, you're going to add the spices, and then right away throw in the eggplant back in the pan. Now, the recipe calls for 1 3/4 cup. I'm just going to use the whole jar because I don't mind if it's heavy on the tomato, but you can definitely measure that out if you want to stay true to the recipe. But I think the whole thing would be just fine. And of course, salt and pepper to taste.
Brooke, what temperature would you warm bread in the oven on?
I mean, if you're just warming it, it would be like 180. But if you're trying to toast it, I would go up to 220.
Okay, thanks.
Do it really fast. You could just play a dangerous game and put it at 350, but that would be scary. Okay, my onions are looking pretty translucent, so I am going to go ahead and add in some garlic.
Okay. Get out my handy dandy tool.
And I'm going to kind of stir constantly with the garlic.
Okay.
It's so funny that no matter, like, if you just put onion and garlic in a pot and start cooking it, the entire house just smells wonderful. And it's just 2 simple ingredients, but someone comes home and they're
Oh. Okay.
all right. So I've had the garlic in there for a good minute, and I'm going to add my spices. And so there's fresh leafy green matter in there too. And if you want to take it a little slower, you can lift the pot up from the heat like I'm doing to make sure everything gets mixed in really well. And then you can put it back on the heat. Just be careful not to burn yourself, of course. Then I'm going to go ahead and add in my eggplant back into the Give that a good stir. Make sure the spices, the garlic and the onions are throughout. Keep showing you so you can see what's going on in there. It looks really delicious.
Mm. Oh man.
That was delicious. Yeah.
And I'm going to add my crushed tomatoes now. So I said I was going to put the whole jar. Please feel free to use the 1 3/4 cup, but I do feel like if I can open the jar, I can put it.
Add 2 jars of tomatoes.
Okay, I opened it. That's a victory.
I think this would make like a really good soup.
Mm-hmm. Okay, tomatoes are in. Sorry, I got a barking dog. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. Mickey is behind. Come here. He's my guard dog from New Orleans. He thinks he owns this house.
He's beautiful.
Beauty.
Yeah. All right, so I'm just stirring in my stew, just so everyone can get a little peek. And I saved a little bit of basil to put on top now. Here's where you're gonna want to salt and pepper to taste. Feel free to try it. It's not gonna be too hot right now. If you wanna get a spoon and see what it tastes like now, so you can choose how much salt. I'm probably gonna put in about a teaspoon for myself. And if I need more, I'll salt it after. And I'm gonna throw in quite a bit of black pepper as well. So at this point, you should have plenty of olive oil in there, so you don't have to add any more. You're gonna cover it and we're just gonna simmer it for 15, 20 minutes. You can go longer if you wanna simmer it longer. It's just gonna break down even more and probably get more delicious, but should be ready to go in 15 minutes if you're hungry. So cover it. So simmer is just kind of a little bit of bubbling action happening. It's not a rolling boil. It's just kind of like when you open the pot, it's like psst, just a little bit.
That's
So
delicious.
Say that again.
Oh,
Yeah, and I think this would also be really good over pasta too, especially like a shelled noodle or something like that. That would be good.
that's an idea.
I'm gonna give mine a little taste test to see if I want to alter any spices. Wow, that's very good. Cannot wait to eat it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good if it simmers for a little while.
It's delicious. Yeah.
Let my eggplant break down just a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, it's gonna want to cook a little longer, but I wish we could all eat it for real together, but
I could even hit it with the immersion blender and just make a nice soup out of it.
yeah, that's a great idea. I need to get one of those. That's the one.
If you can eat it cold, it'd be great cold like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like eating a margarita pizza. I could even like put some Parmesan in there and it would be good too, or on top.
Oh, I might add some Parmigiano Romano to it because I like the mix of Parmigiano Romano.
Yeah. It's really, do you also see how this could be a good cold dip? It kind of reminds me of baba ganoush in a way.
I gotta start losing. I'm gonna try these leeks. I'm gonna try them.
I'm trying to remember the leek soup that my mother used to make. That was so good. Because there's one without potatoes. Oh, I'm gonna send. I'm gonna send a leek recipe in the chat. And if anyone ever has ingredients that they're like, I don't know what to do with this, or wants to get a recipe, share a recipe with us, or get some ideas or inspiration, please feel free to email me or anyone at Just Roots. Like we have so many recipes stockpiled for like hundreds and hundreds of different types of vegetables and different dietary restrictions as well, and just use the resource because they have so much there and it's amazing. You can learn so much.
Yeah.
Does everyone here get our newsletter? to find out about if we have more cooking classes and stuff? I mean,
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. I think I do.
usually we send it out once a month and there's like a picture and it says like something just roots and then like a few different updates and stories and events on it. But you can also subscribe by going to our website. Let me pull it up.
That is so yummy.
Yep, you can subscribe via our website under Get Involved. I'm gonna check on mine, see how it's doing. Wow, I want to eat right now. It's a nice like vegetarian meal that doesn't feel vegetarian. It's like very hearty feeling, and that's one of the reasons I love eggplant stews. I'm very please do, if you can, fill out the feedback forms that I think Emily sends out. It would just be cool to see how people's recipes turned out and how they liked it, and if we should ever do it again and that kind of stuff. Okay, folks. Well, if you are, I guess at this point, we're all just going to be waiting till the class, after the class is over, to try our food. So if no one else has questions or anything, and we can let you be on your way and as your mighty cook selves.